Welcome back to Founders Mental Health. Do you walk the talk? The podcast where we interview amazing founders and ask them about their journey and, of course, their mental health. And I have with me Anja. Hello.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
Welcome, and super excited to hear more about you. We got in contact after one of my previous podcast guests has been here, and she mentioned, "Oh, we should talk." So,
Yes.
can't wait to hear more, and that we share this with the audience as well. So, to get started, can you tell more about yourself, who you are, your background, and what you're working on at the moment?
Of course. Thank you for that lovely introduction. My name is Anja, and I came to the US when I was 17 for college. So I would like to consider myself as half immigrant and half just like an international student. Um, I am passionate about mental health because myself, I've always been interested in psychology, and I have a pretty complicated background when it comes to dealing with intimate relationships, whether it's personal relationships with a parent or social relationships. And it was quite a culture shock for me to come to the US so early, to switch to a completely different social scene, not to mention very rigorous and challenging academic setting as well. So right off the bat, I was feeling a lot of nervousness, stress, and just overwhelm. And I tried to look for mental health help as I navigate the US campus. And it was helpful to a degree, but one thing I noticed is that we never did deep work in therapy. We would stay on the surface level, nothing too deep. And I thought that's just the way therapy should be until I went on to my graduate studies. So I did my graduate studies at NYU for psychology as well. And there I met a lot of people from the same background as I did. And in our conversation, we did a lot more deep work than I did with the professional therapists at my school. So that's when I founded Well. It's my company where we basically provide mental health care that is culturally competent for immigrants.
And what's the journey of the company? When did you start? How far have you come?
Oh, that's a great question because actually yesterday marked the 1 year anniversary for my startup. Although technically it did start on January 1st because when I started the company in November, I was still working on a lot of logistics. As you, Paula, you probably have been aware, having talked to so many immigration founders, we cannot start on the actual work before we clear the paperwork first.
Yes, exactly. It can be a bureaucratic nightmare, and that's just the
Yes,
beginning.
very true, very true.
Amazing. So 1 year in, how's it going? How's the journey so far?
Well, as all the founders know, there must be ups and downs on a founder's journey. I'm both very lucky and also I know that this is a women thing. We say that we're very lucky, but actually we're very competent. So I'll start saying that I'm very lucky and very competent to have a working startup. By working, I mean we have customers who love our product and service, and we have observed growth in the last year. So besides having customers, which is something that I'm very grateful for, we also try to just sort of set the vision straight. So one thing I was continuously doing as I was um, embarking on my founder's journey, my startup journey, is that I will always make sure to do discovery interviews with my customers to see where the needs lie. So
Mhm.
at first, I thought we would just provide the mental health care ourselves, but then later I found out that a lot of immigrants rely on the local therapists in their state for the mental health. And we thought instead of being a competitor to these therapists, we could work with them. So, a recent progress that I'm so excited to share is that we started working with therapists who are not immigrant um, or not in the same background as their client, and we started becoming their sort of consultant, so to speak, to inform them on cultural literacy.
Wow. I am working also on the AI side of coaching. And there are, of course, challenges when it comes to understanding different languages and cultural differences, right? So also how we talk about, you were mentioning deep work, and if you we talk about emotions and feelings, the names that we give to these vary a lot between languages. So what does anger mean to me or the next person? It can be quite different. How do we express it is very different.
For sure.
And yeah, everything that goes around it is it can be so different across cultures, across like different backgrounds, whether it's education, uh country. So I can imagine that there's so much work that goes into this and super important aspect.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And it's funny you should mention AI because that's also one of the directions we are going. I realized that it can be so limiting to have humans provide the services. So there's been talk about technologizing
Mhm.
the service that we provide. And one of the tools that's very handy and has a lot of potential is AI because like you said, right, like language matters so much in therapy session. The same word can mean different things to people from different cultures. So an AI tool that has a built-in translation function as well as cultural insight can be a great co-pilot for therapists, and that's what we're working on as we work with therapists to discover the pain points and what they actually need from a tool like this.
Amazing, amazing. I love that. And I think we should put our minds together also to see if we can
Yes.
collaborate on that.
That would be great,
But
actually.
yeah, and you started this company, and have you always been interested in becoming an entrepreneur? Was that what you had in mind when you were studying?
Um, I'm gonna answer that question in two parts. So yes, I have always been entrepreneurial. I've always been deeply curious, and I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. However, this is going to be very, very relevant to immigrants, especially like Chinese immigrants. So, our parents want us to have a steady career. And so, because of that, I didn't think about becoming an entrepreneur before I turned 30. And that is, by the way, not the age I am now. That is older than the age I am now. So, I was kind of thrown onto this opportunity. Um, Long story short, I was laid off by my previous company, a finance company that had a steady career path for me. And then I started thinking, like, what do I really want to do? So the year I was laid off was 22, right? 22 was a really tough year for finding new jobs, especially when you're an immigrant or someone on a visa in the US. So it was damn near impossible, excuse my language. And as I tried to find new jobs, I started thinking, like, what is my life purpose? Why am I unhappy with, like, I'm just not excited with any of these opportunities presented to me. Um, and I started just like as a side hobby anyway.
Mhm.
Before it took off, I like didn't give much thought to this becoming a real career opportunity for me. And then a lot of things happened at the same time, so I can't really contribute it to one factor or another. But this mentor came to me. I didn't even know him before then. I was applying to a pitch competition, and then he came to me. He's like, "Hey, Anja, wow, 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 sounds really promising. Like you should do it for profit." By the way, it was a nonprofit before it was
Mhm.
for profit, right? So I started thinking, oh, like if this guy who is very well known in the industry believes in well, maybe I should give it an honest shot. Um, and I decided, and this is something that I'm so excited to talk about in your podcast, Paula. I decided to take a risk, and it was so nerve wracking in the beginning, especially like where I'm coming from, especially with immigrants, we always have the safety mindset, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to overcome that. But I did, and it took me a few months to get on track to like steady my mental health. But I'm there now, and I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing now.
Amazing. Yeah, quite, it must be quite a lot of challenges coming your way, and changes in routine as well, going from the corporate world to, okay, what are you gonna do? And then starting a company with both the ups and downs. So can you share a bit more about how your mental health has changed through this journey from the corporate to what you're doing today?
Of course, of course. Oh, where do I even start? I feel like just that question can take up an entire hour. Um, well, long story short, simply put, I came from, or I should say, I grew from someone who is definitely very much of a perfectionist, someone who needs to be perfect, someone who needs to have a lot of success, but never felt like she was enough, to someone who is just happy with maybe like a little amount of success here and there, who just believes in herself and who is okay with how should I put this? Uncertainty and risk. I mean, I'm not 100% there yet. I would love to be, but it's a growth journey, and I've seen so much progress in the past few months.
Yeah. How did you grow? What did you do?
Well, something I realized in life is that growth always comes from challenge. It's not comfortable. No.
No.
Okay, so I'll give you a very specific example. So, for a few months, we didn't get a ton of customers, but we were still growing, and I just had to be either extremely sad and depressed, or I have to find a way to look on the brighter side. And I cannot run well, maybe some people can, but I cannot run a company when I'm like always depressed, when I have low energy, because as you know, being a founder is very high energy, high uh consuming career. So I just had to find a way to look on the brighter side. Although I will say that I had plenty of help, since I am myself working in mental health, and I have this neat trick where like whenever I interview someone who wants to be on the team, I always invent a story that has part of my story in it,
Hmm.
and I see if this person can actually make me feel better,
Yeah.
right? And then through a lot of that conversations, I was able to just find new perspectives on things. I had a lot of encouragement. The work itself is very rewarding. So all of that did contribute to my mental health in a good way. Another point I would like to introduce to our conversation was I learned to be very direct with how I feel, and that is a game changer. Um, I feel like a lot of my anxiety, or a lot of our anxiety, um, whoever might be listening that relates to my story, is coming from shoving our feelings down.
Hmm.
And I used to think that a successful person is very successful at not expressing their emotions, but it's quite the opposite, actually. I learned while leading my team that I need to be very honest with both what I need and how I'm feeling. And I need to just believe in how I think things should be, especially when I'm in a leadership position.
Hmm.
So I know that that is two separate points.
No, so super interesting. And I mean, you're bringing that up, and that feels the more authentic way of being as a person
Yes.
and as a leader, that you actually share how you're feeling as well, that you're not hiding it. It's not the kind of example that we get from all these movies and sitcoms, and like you almost need to be a bad guy. That's what the movies are showing, and what social media, I think, it's also promoting.
The thing is, I think in the film industry, there are a lot of bad guys. So that kind of gets spread around by the people who like wrote the script, who like directed it. And then like of course there are plenty of quote unquote bad guys who like are sort of more focused on that lifestyle when they are a leader. But there are also plenty of leaders who are just, you know, you and me. Like there are a lot of small business in the US, right? Like not to say that people who aren't bad guys necessarily lead small businesses, but there are a lot of companies that focus on social impact, a lot of companies that, you know, actually want to do good in the world. And I feel like because it doesn't fit the stereotype, it doesn't get overplayed.
Mhm.
Um, I myself, you know, I'm just trying to be the best version of myself, like not to sound corny, but that's what I learned through the company and through my own self
Yeah.
growth. And I didn't start off that way. I started off by wanting to build the biggest company possible, like wanting mega success. And that is kind of the mantra of like high achieving Chinese immigrants now that I think about it. But that's very consuming to your mental health. And I learned that I got to take it one step at a time. I cannot just achieve mega success at, in my 20s. It's not possible. And it's a tremendous pressure that I do not need to be putting on myself. So, yeah, I'm just trying to be better and I'm passionate about mental health. So, trying to be better is actually trying to make my company better. So, that makes, that works out.
Yeah, it's aligned with your values. And so, can you talk freely about your mental well-being with the rest of the team? Are they sharing as well? Are they focused on their mental health?
Okay, that is a tricky question because I thought you were asking if I can talk freely on the podcast, which I can't. But no, I cannot talk freely about my mental health with the team because that would be sort of a dual relationship, which is very much frowned upon in the field of mental health. I do keep it to myself, which I know goes against what I've been saying for the podcast. I have my own therapist who doesn't work for me, right? And I find it best to like keep work and my therapy work separate. We do try to help each other the best way we can on the team. And one thing I realized that, the advantage of the freedom of a founder is you can choose whoever you work with. I chose I'm not even bragging. They are the best people to work with. Every time we have a meeting, it's like noodle soup for the soul. It's very, very nice to work with these people. Very nice to talk to these people, and we lift each other up. Of course, we talk about our careers, and it's been a tough time, man, for immigrants and for everybody out there, but especially for immigrants. So we try to lift each other up. We try to say encouraging words. So in that way, we do support each other. We don't share personal relationship problems because that is just not workplace appropriate. But other than that, we try to encourage each other in terms of our career, our pursuits, our abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. It's a difficult relation, right? So how much do you actually share with others? Um, and when it comes to everyday stressors, what is it that creates most stress for you as a founder?
This is very controversial, but that might be just because of who I am. I think that the founder work itself, sure, it is difficult, but it never really created stress the same way my social life and my interpersonal relationships cause me stress because for me work itself is very rewarding and I know that going into it was going to be difficult, right? So that never really caused me nearly as much stress as people have caused me. And in work it manifested into, so before Wawa I worked on a different startup, and it manifested itself into just like stress with people, like how do I keep these people happy and doing what they love, like how do I deal with coworkers, um especially as a leader for the first time. That was very, very stressful, and that gave me so much anxiety. I'm sure, Paula, you are familiar with the Sunday blues, right? Like before work, especially with my first startup, we would do a Monday stand up, and it became very stressful to just think about the Monday stand up on Sunday. So I think dealing with people, dealing with coworkers is a big part of founder stress. And it's also a lot of like, it's a large percentage of why startups fail is co-founder disagreements, right? So dealing with people is actually very difficult. And I haven't found out the best way to go around it. So I'm sorry, I don't have any advice for you. But I think in my personal mantra, I try to be as honest as possible to avoid any confusion, any passive aggressiveness. And that's the best I can do now.
Yeah, exactly. Have you taken some proactive, I don't know, steps to learning how to communicate better with others?
Yes, actually, I learned this from a former member of my team who was a coach. She was just amazing. Everyone who was her client thought she was amazing. And they were talking about, oh, like I tried therapy before. I was with an American therapist, but this is a game changer. Like, I got so many comments like that. Anyway, this is what she told me. There are 3 steps to communication, and this works with anyone, but especially with someone who is intimate with you, because of course you want this person to care about you and care about how you're feeling, right? So, first step is expressing how you feel. And that needs to be a feeling, not a fact. So a feeling might be I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling anxious, I feel vulnerable, right? That's a feeling and that's an I statement. It's not directing towards anyone. But a fact might be I feel like this is getting out of hand. I feel like we're not coming, and that you might be feeling like you're saying a feeling, but it's actually a fact, right? So avoid that. The second step is to communicate the reasons you're feeling that way. And you don't have to do any deep work to go, oh, I feel this way because of my childhood. That's not the point here. The reason is I feel this way because of this thing that happened, right? So a good example might be um, if I'm talking to you, Paula, for example, I feel stressed out because it's my first time being on somebody else's podcast. And I listen to your podcast and it's really great. And that makes me wonder if I'm not so great, for example. This is not how I'm currently feeling.
Just an example, because you're doing great.
Oh, thank you, Paula. So this way, you let them know why you might be feeling this way, right? And it's very non-confrontational because you're just saying, "Oh, this is how I feel, and I have reasons to feel that way." You're also validating yourself in a way, and a lot of, I think, miscommunication and conflict comes from people not feeling validated. So in this way, right, we feel validated, we feel centered. And the final thing is be genuinely curious as to why the person did the thing that made you feel bad. So in this example, it's actually a bad example because you didn't do anything, but in a conflict, there's often some action that caused us to feel a certain way, right? So be genuinely curious because most often than not, if this is somebody we're close to, they might not have intended us to feel a bad way, right? So just be curious, like, why did you do this? I'm sure you didn't mean to make me feel bad, but what is your intention behind your actions? So this way, you let the other person to communicate their intention, and you make them feel seen and validated, and you can go on having learned more about each other and how they feel in situations and what they do and what caused them to do it.
Mhm. Wow, so powerful. Or
I know.
and it makes so much sense. Blaming someone else will not get you in the right situation. But sometimes when we're in the heat of the moment, it just becomes so big. So it's like having this knowledge on what to do. So super, super powerful.
And it's really hard to do as well. Like when I'm explaining it, it might sound easy, but when I was first introduced to this concept, I was um a year younger. And oh my God, it was like there was so much growth, personal growth ahead of me. I did not even know how to state my feeling. I didn't do that with my parents at all. And then I learned this concept. I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And then I had a conflict with my mother. And for the first time, I was saying my feeling, like how I was feeling angry, how I was feeling frustrated. Um, and I was stating the reason behind. And for the first time ever, she just accepted it. She always had some kind of like what I had seen as resistance to hearing me out. And that I'm realizing that now it might have been just her trying to feel seen and validated, her trying to express her intentions, right?
Yeah.
But when I was stating my feeling using the 3 steps, she felt seen and she immediately accepted. She apologized. It was amazing, like first time in 25 years. So that is some powerful stuff. But it is very difficult to do, of course. So if our listeners, if you are listening and you might want to try, but you meet some resistance, it's totally natural, totally understandable because it's so hard to talk about how we feel. And it's totally okay if sometimes you don't feel like doing that. You take a step back. Just, do it when you want to, when you can.
The great tips. Um, Anything you'd like to share in terms of mental health tips and tricks on how to keep sane?
Working out is actually a very underestimated method of keeping yourself sane. Like, because your brain releases these happy hormones and it's so scientific. There's no way to cheat it. You just got to work out in like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and you'll be feeling calm and peaceful. And that's just like guaranteed. So, whenever you feel well overwhelmed and you have access to a gym or you can like run or something, I would recommend just do it. It doesn't directly solve all of your problems, of course, but it puts you in a better mindset and you just feel happier. So that is actually my second point, is that you don't have to solve everything to be sane. And that's what I used to think as a young, high achieving professional, right? Like having done my master's, like I thought that, okay, if I encounter a problem and that's making me super anxious, but it's like motivating me to think, to brainstorm all the different ways to solve it, I have to at least get to 50 or 60% of the problem before I can sleep. That's the way I used to work, and that's the way I see a lot of my peers work. But no, because you need to sleep every day.
Yep.
And you need to eat, and you need to keep yourself in a better mindset so you make better decisions and you're nicer to people. Like you can maintain your physical and mental health. So no, your mental health does not depend on what percentage of the problems you solve, because the problems will keep coming at you, especially when you're a founder. There's limitless problems to solve. So the better mindset is you put yourself in a better mindset first, and the problems will solve later, right? Just focus on how you can feel better in the moment. Like also to have trust in yourself that you will find a solution. And this trust in myself is actually something that I did very intensive research on for the past few months as well, which I'm so excited to talk about. We have coaching programs on productivity, and procrastination is something I personally struggled with for years. And I was procrastinating work, which made me so sad because blah 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 is something I found profoundly aligned to my personal mission, right? Like I had internal motivation, so I shouldn't procrastinate. So I was really confused. And I wanted to study this and provide a solution for procrastinators out there. And my research told me that procrastination came from stress and sort of like a lack of trust in ourselves.
Yeah.
And the stress is usually from like, this is a really difficult task. What if I'm just not good enough to do it? So there are definitely a lot of other aspects to talk about this, but one thing that came to my mind is I started making this brag sheet about myself, and I am very, very grateful to have a partner, my boyfriend, who believes in me, who encourages me when I'm feeling anxious and upset. So these are two ways, sort of the same method, is to instill trust in yourself by looking at your past accomplishments or having a partner tell you, like, there's no reason to be anxious. When we are anxious or when I'm anxious, I tend to go into a spiral, right? On the surface level, it might just be I'm facing a difficult task. I don't know if I can finish this on time. That is surface level, completely okay. I can have doubts about that, but still be confident that I'm a successful, high achieving, powerful women founder, right? But when I go in the spiral and there's nothing stopping me, I might quickly go down to, oh, I actually haven't started any work on time. I actually haven't succeeded in any work like this. And then I started thinking about my past failures. And I started thinking about, like, actually, what if I'm just not competent? What if I am lazy? What if I am not nearly as good as the other founders? What if, right? And then it goes down to what if I am just always bound to fail, which is absolutely 100% not correct for any of you out there, right? And so it goes from surface level, like truth, fact, to down in the spiral, like something just the most damaging thing you can say about anyone and absolutely not true. And you need to stop yourself or find someone to stop you somewhere along the way. And that is how it works with intervention. with procrastination and productivity. Very often when we are down the spiral, we don't even realize it and we do something distracting, but it's still happening, like watching YouTube videos, right? But it's still happening and you would just aren't self-aware. But if we talk to someone, a productivity coach with well, perhaps, or, a partner or someone who loves you, and they stop you halfway, like, actually, no, I mean, you might be right about like this task being difficult, but so what? You have all these great accomplishments, look on the bright side. And it just it makes it so much better.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for being so honest about it. I can see myself also doing that. And I don't think we are alone. I think a lot of people go through this, including founders, where the work that you do is often motivated by some values that you have and the impact that you want to create. So it's so close to your heart and often identify with it, which is not a healthy way. But it's a lot of doubts, and I think this is really good, interesting work that people should go into and have this brag sheet, a reminder, and then a support system as well. People around that can remind you, yeah, you're again going into a spiral. Remember how cool you are, how you presented at this, what you have achieved. So they can bring you back up. So, wow, what a great reminder. And thank you for being so open and honest about it.
Of course, that's my entire mantra, be open and be honest. And actually, I'd like to share a piece of my business that I learned very early on. So I didn't spend any money on marketing because I myself, I'm a very stingy person. I'm very cheap. I don't like to spend money on businesses on marketing. I would like try to figure out how to do it myself. I used to do like classic advertisement stuff. And then I did a post about myself, my own progress, and that got so much more attention. And the point is, I think that a lot of us who are founders are working on a problem that we deeply care deeply about. And it's very important to take advantage of the close connection, personal connection we have to the problem to appeal to your customers or clients or whoever you might be speaking to, investors, I don't know. And what's more important is have the courage to be real and honest and open about our own personal struggles because that's very rare, right? And when people see that, when people hear that, it's very powerful. Like, wow, okay, I can relate to that. That's real. Um, Something that is real is something that most people will be more willing to invest in than something that's not real, right? Whether it's a customer investing like a couple $100 into your service or an investor investing a lot more. Um, I think it's always better to be honest so that you can appeal to people and you can get people who actually care about the problem. And so that you create a good circle where you pull good people in and they care about the problem and you are honest about the problem. So you filter out the people who just who are not right for you.
Yeah, yeah. And it could be so powerful. As you were talking about it, I got goosebumps. So I'm like, wow, it's so important.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you for that. Is there any other question that I haven't asked but I should have asked you?
Yes, there is. And this is something for the immigrant founders and especially the female immigrant founders out there. I think a lot of the stuff that I talked about in our limited time today, right? Like being not so sure about myself, being not so confident, and like having this pressure on me to achieve relates to a bigger problem that we might have, which is imposter syndrome. And it can manifest itself in the ways we are not sure about our decisions or we keep seeking external validation for our decisions. And it can manifest in very healthy ways like looking very eagerly to build a investor network or like a mentor network. And that is all good and well. But deep down, I have learned in the past few months to not rely on other people to make decisions about my own company because it's my own company, right? Like as young and inexperienced as I am, I know this problem well and I know what I want to achieve. So even if some of my decisions are going to be mistakes, these are mistakes I have to make. But more importantly, it's just not going to be anybody else's decision. So I think a lot of us, when we're making decisions where we think things to be one way, we get easily convinced by other people who might not know our situation as well. And they think, oh, I think it should be that way. And then we say, okay, that sounds good. We try it out. We think of ourselves as a good team player or like someone who takes it insight and feedback. But actually, the better way to take feedback and insight is to listen to them, keep that in mind, but make our own decision. I cannot stress how important this is, and it all connects, right? Like making our own decision makes us more self-aware, makes us listen to our voice more, and it also builds up confidence. So all connects, and that is something that I learned in the past few months together with everything like in my growth. I simply just am not going back to when I was trying to make everybody else happy but me. There are so many different ways to achieve the goal, which is to make our own voice heard, to, like be a more effective leader in terms of making our own decisions. And one way about it is to like think about how in everyday life we don't listen to our own voice. There are other ways to go about it, which I have talked about previously in the podcast, but I just want to talk about how important it is for female leaders to believe in our own voice, listen to our own voice, and make our own decisions.
Yeah, very important. And thanks for sharing that.
Of course. Of course.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was a pleasure. So many good nuggets of information and knowledge, and very cool to get a glimpse at your growth journey. And we will be following what's next.
Yes.
And how can people reach out to you after listening this podcast?
Thank you, Paula. I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to share my growth. I'm always open to talk about mental health. I'm always open to talk about the founder journey. So I am on LinkedIn. You can just search my name, Anja Zhou. That is Zhou. I like to spell out my last name for you. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you're a female founder, if you're working in mental health, I would love to connect with you. For those of you out there who are immigrants and who are seeking perhaps mental health coaching, or who are investors, maybe, our website is wellcounseling.com, and that's counseling with one L. It's spelled differently in different countries. So wellcounseling.com. And you can learn all about our vision and our current offerings on our website. At the bottom of our website, there's also our Instagram, our podcast. So my podcast, I'm Chinese. My podcast is in Mandarin Chinese. So for those of you who speak that language, who want to check out my podcast name is Wow Wow Wow. You put space between the words. And then in Chinese, it says 北美中文心理健康. It just says mental health in North America for Chinese.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure, Anja.
It's been a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, hey. Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, I have a favor to ask. Share it with someone you know that you think might benefit from listening to it as well. Thanks. And don't forget to walk the talk.